Pedro?
Thank you so much. I think that there's, you know, I've had to field many questions and without any real answers to really be able to provide. So, because I think we were all surprised, the advocates were all surprised by this particular action being taken in this particular form, where we hadn't had the opportunity to discuss or testify or be able to educate the community about what a proposal like this might look like. So I think that that's been really difficult for advocates to process through, is that the method of that it happened. And then to not really, for myself, in sort of answering questions, is that I would say, I honestly, the proviso seems fairly simple in nature as far as the intent, and I think we're all in agreement with what Finance Chair tried to do, which is to spread services to more people. We all wanted that. And there were a couple of bills that were trying to accomplish that. And so we thought, you know, that would be the most logical place if we wanted to do changes to the program, that would be the most logical place to be able to discuss them, be able to vet them, you know, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm trying to understand now is the program just simply once a week, $70 once a week? Is there any flexibility within the proviso? Is it 52 days a year? Is it $70 times 52? I mean, is there any kind of flexibility within that proviso that can be worked out so that the Executive Office on Aging, the ADRCs, have the flexibility to be able to provide services as are needed by a specific family? Because that was one of the big hallmarks of the way that the program was designed, was that the program met the needs of the specific families, you know, as they were. So I'm now trying to understand sort of where does this leave us as far as being able to create a pilot program.
No, those are good, legitimate questions. I know we have some people from the Executive Office on Aging here. Are you in a position to provide any guidance to us as to what the next step is for the Executive Office on Aging?
So all I was told that I could say is that we're waiting for Attorney General to give us direction.
I can, I might report that I got a call from Senator Baker. She was concerned about the proviso. She was concerned about the impact it would have on the program, and asked that the Kupuna Caucus considered requesting the governor to do a line item veto on that item. And then I shared with her basically there is an Attorney General opinion because it's in the governor's message that I think I shared with some of you, many of you, that says that a proviso cannot I don't use that word anymore, Trump, but Trump.
Override?
Override, thank you.
Wasn't this governor?
Oh, no, yeah. But there would be a challenge. I mean, I cannot see on a legal basis, because I do a lot of parliamentary legal and all my research, and to me it's pretty slam dunk that you cannot. And because of the subject title, because it's relating to the budget, you know, and a budget proviso compared to a statutory provision, that's where, you know, what does, we have, it looks like, okay, we have an attorney, a real attorney here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to put my legislative solution-making hat on.
Right.
And while I deeply respect Senator Baker and her recommendation that there be a line item veto, I actually disagree with her on this. And the reason I disagree is because, you know, the $600,000 initially that was piloted for it, that was budgeted, would have lasted until when? The end of this
June
fiscal
30.
year, correct?
June 30.
June 30th.
Right? So then if you ask and request a line item veto, basically you're saying, okay, well, we don't want the $1.2 million to even try to work, because that's what the line item veto will do. It will take out, potentially, the appropriation of $1.2 million. Now, if that's the message you want to send, then it's a message of, okay, well, we don't prioritize this as much. We don't want to work on finding a solution. And we're going to put our eggs in our baskets for the Kupuna Care program, that's fine. That's a decision that can be made. But I don't think that's a strategic decision. What I would do, because I happen to disagree, that maybe not in the budget did you have this hearing or conversation about the concerns legislators had about the Kupuna Caregiver program, but I'm looking at Representative Lermont, and certainly in our Health and Human Services committees, we were grilling the Executive Office on Aging on how did you design your programs? Show us your contracts. How many people are you serving? Show us the design program. Show us who you talk to. Show us your rules. Show us the criteria. And we got nothing. I will tell you, though, in the ending days of session, I did start to get emails from the Executive Office on Aging on the contracts. But that's at the ending days of session. So the very real concern of the House was that if you multiply the number of caregivers we have in this state, which is over 200,000, by $70 a day, 5 days a week, the budget item for that would be $4 billion. And we just cannot sustain that. So what I urge this group to do, and I'm willing, which is why I came, and I'm a great supporter of the Kupuna Caucus, is we need to take a deep breath, and the 600,000 was going to be gone anyway. We need to sit down with the Executive Office on Aging and have a conversation. Okay, show us what was the work you did to design this program. What was the work you did with the counties? Because I understand it's county specific as well. So what we need to do is we need to look at what were the intakes.
It's not.
It's not? Okay, so I was told it was county specific.
Maui and Honolulu are here.
No.
Well,
So
okay.
the parameters of the program, though, were
What
set
item?
forth
What
by
item?
the state.
Okay, so that's what I'm
So,
saying, right?
yeah.
So we have this opportunity for all of us to take a deep breath, to work together, and again, we can bring in the advocates, because what I understand is that when this program was designed, there was a great group of advocates around the table from the various services who are like, we stand ready to do something. That's what I suggest you guys do. I feel bad I didn't talk to Senator Baker about this because I didn't,
Ultimately, you're on the same page.
yeah.
I mean, she wants it to work, and I think you're suggesting we move forward. We need to look together and see what to do. And too bad it took so long for you to get the information.
But we really need to get the Executive Office on Aging, the state guys here. And we need to have a frank discussion of what does the program design look like, what are the services that are out there, and how can we do a range, right? How can we do a range? Because I think of caregivers at different points in time. Like, I think about the caregiver who is taking their mother out, who just had a stroke, and there has been no caregiver planning done. That caregiver, at that point in time, all they might need is someone to sit down and help them write out a care plan. So that might be with an attorney or a social worker. And that family may actually have enough resources to do the adult daycare. And they don't need the adult daycare. But you might have a family who needs both the care planning and then needs, okay, I need to go to work 3 days of the week. My sister can come in on 1 day of the week. Can I get adult daycare for 1 day of the week? Right? We have to think about all those scenarios and then see, can all the counties do that? Do they have the flexibility to do that? We don't know. We don't know because we have 6 months, and all the Executive Office on Aging told us is that they were giving money out to adult daycare. So from this side of the table, it was like, we are not going to spend $4 billion. We can't, because our Medicaid budget, it's $10 billion. No, excuse me, it's not. It's $2 billion. $2 billion. Our Medicaid budget for over 235,000 patients, I think, is like $2 billion. Our entire state budget our operating budget is $14 billion now. So we're not going to spend $4 billion on caregivers. We just aren't. We don't have that kind of money. So that's my pitch.
I have one more statement, please. And I understand exactly what you're saying. There should have been a better plan, okay? And I would love to be a part of making the plan work. But my concern for right now is the caregivers that have started the program, some in February, some in March, some in April, that were planning on being able to work and take care of mom and dad, and now as of June 30th, it's gone. So that's my concern.
And I think, Nalani from Honolulu Elderly Affairs Division, that's our concern as well. Initially going into this, we thought that at least there would be another year of existing, the program being implemented the same way. Because really, in all fairness, by the time we got the information from the Executive Office on Aging to really get a program up and running, we had to really push, really push.
Okay, so I was told that the people who are qualified for the Kupuna Caregiver programs, that the patients themselves qualify for the Kupuna Care programs. Is that correct?
Yes.
So isn't there adult daycare monies for the Kupuna Care program?
Yes.
So there's your solution.
Not necessarily, because we already are allocating our Kupuna Care dollars to people who are receiving services. So in order to do that, we would have to stop providing services to some of the people we're currently serving, and or we would have to also get additional vendors, because right now we only have one for adult day. And the way in which it's implemented is different than the Kupuna Caregiver program.
Okay. Now, is it true, Maui County, that the Maui County puts in money for your Kupuna Care services?
It is true that we receive a line item for direct service, yes.
And is it true, does Honolulu put anything in?
They provide services in other ways, yes.
Okay, well, I think the question then becomes if there's a shortfall, right? And I don't know what your contracts are. I don't know what your Kupuna Caregiver contracts look like.
Yeah, and I think
but
that's
if there's
really unfortunate too.
But if there's flexibility, I
There's
think
not much. There really isn't. And I think though, see, the point is that I guess you folks have a priority of just speaking to the Executive Office on Aging. I think it's unfortunate that we were never addressed, asked, talked to. I mean, we've provided testimony as well in regards to this, and we are being responsive to what the caregivers are asking for. Even in this next round, we were already preparing to provide additional services because we were asked to by the community.
So may I ask, how many people do you have in the Kupuna Caregiver program?
We have 65 that have been authorized for adult day services. We did 128 assessments thus far and are still doing them. And we've received over 1,000 calls in regards to this program.
So
in addition to that, we were planning on in this next year to provide services, in-home respite services, because that's what people were asking for. So it's very different. You know, we had literally 5 months to get this program up and running. And hello, we're still in May. We just started May. So since February, we got information from EOA in January. I think we've all done an excellent job to get this program up and running, to help support caregivers.
So
that was the intent.
I know that is the intent, but we also have to work within our means, correct? So the question, you've given me a wealth of information. Please provide that in writing to me. Please tell me, of the 65 people that you guys have accepted, do you know how many are getting 5 days of service a week? How many are getting 3 days of service a
Yes,
week?
and we
Give us
provide that information.
Then provide
all
it
the
directly
time.
to us.
Okay, that's not a problem.
All right, and then
Except,
we'll
though,
have
the problem
Executive
is-
Office on Aging coming. And then let's look at the contracts, because literally the legislature got the contracts. I saw a contract maybe in the last waning weeks. And so there's a lot about this pilot program that is not clear to lots of people in this room.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate. The other thing is that I think the big question for most people right now is, so there's absolutely nothing we can do at this point for the proviso. So it's in place, there's nothing we can do. We cannot change the way it is written, is that correct? Because no one, I mean, in every conversation I've had, everybody has 20 different versions of what is possible. And so I think the bottom line for a lot of us is what is possible. And if nothing else is possible, then we have to work with what we have, right? So if that's what we're hearing, that's what I want to know.
Deborah, did you have something to add before we go on to other questions from the audience?
Yes, and thank you, Representative Belatti. A couple of things. We too recognize that in that spectrum of caregiving, some people only need a little bit of help. They just need assistance. If they only need 1 day of help a week, we generally put them in our family caregiver program. That's a national, that's paid for with our federal funds. So there, we do get a small amount of money. So we're covering caregivers along that full spectrum. So I don't ever anticipate it taking $4 billion, because we would never be authorizing 7 days a week for every single caregiver. It wouldn't happen, because that we only authorize to unmet need. So if a family only needs 1 day a week, we would use our federal family caregiver funds for that family. So we serve a lot of families in Maui County with our federal and or county funds. These funds, the state Kupuna Caregiver funds, we have put our most needy families, the ones who really are at risk of needing to quit their jobs. So all of the other people on the spectrum, until then, we serve with our other funding sources. Every county has National Family Caregiver Program monies they can use for some of their caregivers. For me, the analogy is, if you have a community clinic and you have 10 people that need knee replacements, you give them those knee replacements, they need them. And then someone says, oh, but really we need to serve 200 people with bad knees. So let's just give everyone a knee brace, regardless of those 10 people really need that intense level. Too bad, we're going to serve 200 people. And now where it is we are going to have to tell our families, come July 1, we need that knee brace back. It's not going to be pretty for any of us, because we have been targeting to the most needy, the most desperate, and now we're going to have to tell those people, we're so sorry. Now, so basically, I'm very grateful for the money. It's $1.2 million additional dollars that basically is going to be additional Kupuna Care dollars, in essence, right? With the proviso, which, great, we've got $1.2 million extra dollars. We appreciate that, but it's really not a Kupuna Caregivers program. It's extra Kupuna Care money. We're grateful, but the proviso kind of undercuts, I think, the intent of what the original law was. So thank you for listening.
Susie, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Susie, during her time, we expanded the Kupuna Care use of the funds to include caregivers.
Yes,
But
well,
it didn't increase
respite,
the
yes.
dollar amount anymore.
We did modify several years earlier the use of Kupuna Care money so it would help with respite services that is authorized in statute, as well as to modify the home. So for ramps, building of ramps, etc. To date, I don't think EOA has actually utilized that permissive statutory provision. And so it still can be used. The Kupuna Care monies can be used for that purpose. When I spoke with Senator Baker in 2016, and having had a very long history since 1988 for Senator Ihara, and for me 1990 and on, we were trying to get a long-term care insurance plan. And so I mentioned to Senator Baker that because Kupuna Care was well established, the legislature was very familiar with it, the community was very familiar with it, that we should utilize that program to try and expand for the caregivers. And so the thought, when I was talking with Senator Baker at the time, my thought was having something like the Care Plus or the Family Hope stipend, that dollar amount, whatever it's going to be, $40, $70, but it would be flexibly used for the family and the caregiver, the person being cared for, to address their needs accordingly. So it wasn't something where we would dictate to the family or the caregiver or the person being cared for that it would be adult health, adult day health, or adult whatever. It was up to the person receiving that dollar amount to utilize it in a way that would allow the best care So I kind of followed it a little bit. I tried to stay out, at least for 1 year. Shouldn't be lobbying or anything. But that was the original thought process. So to the extent that a proviso has been instituted, I can totally understand what Rep. Luke and others were concerned about. Is there a way where the providers can work on maybe an alternate proviso language that could be something discussed with the governor, the legislators involved, and go from there? And I haven't heard what the solution was that several people, Pedro, and I don't know if you, Kathy, you had mentioned it, and someone else. But it sounds like there are some options that if we tweak the proviso a little bit, and with the concurrence of maybe the WAM and Rep. Luke and Governor, I just wonder if that proviso language could be modified. Ultimately, in the past, I know as a legislator, I've been told we can ignore the proviso. The executive branch has done that before. I think the spirit of it is what everyone's trying to achieve, where we can help more people. So I don't know if there is, within the AG, and maybe the two chairs can ask, if the proviso language can be modified, still trying to achieve the intent, and with the agreement of House, Senate, and Gov. Anyway, just a thought.
Can I say one other thing? In response to utilizing Kupuna Caregivers only for adult daycare, Maui County, actually, we can use those funds. It's in our contracts for any service. It just so happens that most people choose adult daycare because for that $70 a day cap, they get the most service. They get 8 hours of adult daycare. In our county, they can get 8 hours of adult daycare and a bath for under $70, whereas they could get 2 hours of in-home care. So in looking forward, one thing that would be helpful is if we had an average weekly amount, or that total cap amount per family, so that there is flexibility, so that families could choose the service that best meets their needs. As it so happens, adult daycare is probably the best bang for our buck across the service array. But that might be a thought too in moving forward.
So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that the three center legislators have all met privately to try to help shore up Kupuna Caregivers and ensure the passage, and be able to, we've had meetings with the two representatives, Representative Belatti, Representative Takayama, and Senator Ihara with Executive Office on Aging, to try to shore up. So one of the things that I want to make sure that we all understand is the four people that are sitting before us are people who are champions for Kupuna, and we are very thankful for that. And I think it can get lost in translation, and particularly when things don't end up legislatively the way that we want to. So I want to get that out of the way. I had Representative Belatti call me on Saturday night. One night I was at a party, and to try to say, what do we do? How can we work together? How can we make sure? That's what I heard that day, and that's what I'm hearing today, is that we need to come together. Now, we need to have Executive Office on Aging commit to that as well, obviously, because the only way that any of this works is by the implementation of the way that the implementation is done. We sort of have heard many different things of what people's interpretations are of the proviso, or what can happen or what cannot, but the only one that really matters is however Executive Office on Aging ends up implementing the program. Caring Across Generations had created a group previously with various organizations that were leading, including ARP, FACE, Hawaii Healthcare Association, but various groups that had been advising Executive Office on Aging. I think that, and several lawmakers have been part of it at the time, Senator Takuda, Senator Baker. I see this coalition forming to be able to figure out where do we move from here, and I think we need to do that fairly quickly, because there is going to be people that starting June 1st, whether it's the ADRCs or the people that are receiving services, that are going to say, what happens now? You know, what happens as of June 1st or July 1st? And so if we are in agreement, I'd like for us to, I'll make some recommendations, and if we're all willing to be able to come to the table and meet, then I think that might be the best way to move forward.
And I would request that the AAA directors be involved, because while EOA is the state lead, they do not know each of the intricacies of our contracts, the processes. They don't know what those are. So without having us directly involved, it kind of is going to be chasing our tails. And I would be happy to give you my personal cell phone. I don't party on Saturday nights, so.
I don't either. That's why I can call.
Yeah. Hey, it's easy. I'm good on Sunday mornings too.
Okay, thank you for those suggestions. They're all well taken, and we will follow up offline on that. I just, in terms of, as Pedro mentioned, you know, taking the big picture into account, I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that in terms of care for working caregivers, the ultimate answer is really some form of paid family leave. And I think that's what we're all talking about in the end as being the ultimate solution. So this LRB study will be so very important to all of us in terms of trying to achieve the end goal.
I think, I'm sorry.
I see the opportunity to work together really is really to build a support of the big picture. And if we're going to go paid family leave, that there's a broad base of public support, and maybe use this as a reason to.
But isn't paid family leave just a temporary, for an emergency situation with the family caregiver? It's not a permanent solution. I mean, paid family leave is not, it's not long-term.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so it's not the same thing then.
Well, I mean.
But neither is this.
Yeah, so if you made it, so what would be the equivalent? In other words, how of the caregiver base that we're trying to support, these are the caregivers who are employed who are at most at risk. Can a paid family leave program be designed to address that particular population?
For long-term.
For whatever, for that population. So, you know, I'm not sure what kind of strategies. I mean, I think we're not. It's still developing to me. It's rather than jump at the outcome. There's a variety of different ways to do that. Maybe a combination of some kind.
Well, okay. This is what it could be, right? You could have a paid family leave benefit over the course of a year that you marry with Kupuna Caregiver, right? So say you have X number of days where you can take paid family leave off, right? And you pair that with Kupuna Caregiver funds so that you know you're going to take 1 day a week off, you're going to work 1 day a week, and you're going to use one of your Kupuna Caregiver vouchers for adult daycare. And that's how the thing can get married together, but it's complicated, right? It's a real complicated thing.
Let's see, Nicole, did you have?
Oh, I think Rep. Belatti actually addressed it, but I just wanted to remind folks that Kupuna Caregivers is to keep workers in the workforce. You have to be working 30 hours a week. So it's not every caregiver in the state who can qualify. It's probably a very small fraction. And then paid family leave clicks in when your family member, probably deteriorates to the point that you have to stop working. And the bills that we were pushing for had something like 4 months, 16 weeks of leave in a year. And of course, that's negotiable. So it is a shorter term benefit, but that's when you really can't work anymore. So, in terms of marrying them, you're right, it's very complicated, but it's addressing two different needs, staying in the workforce and then when you're no longer able to make a paycheck.
Okay, that's a good segue to the fact that we have someone from Representative Say's office, Dustin Lee. Do you want to address the issue that Representative Say brought up via a constituent?
So I think some of the people in here have actually been in contact with the constituent. I recognize some of the names, but basically we had a constituent call in. She owns her own hair salon, I believe it is, and I mean, she has to work to pay her bills, but she is technically a self-employed person, and she had applied for the Kupuna Caregiver program and was declined because, as the law is currently written, it does not include self-employed. So the question was, can we possibly update the language of the Kupuna Caregiver program to potentially include some of these self-employed? I know the conversation here is a lot about how there isn't enough money to go around, and this just opens the door further, but that is certainly what we're trying to address in our office.
Thank you, Dustin. Question for our Office on Aging. So would a person that is in the situation described by Dustin, would that person possibly fit into the Kupuna Care category?
Yes.
Kupuna Care.
Yes.
Kupuna Care.
Kupuna Care.
Kupuna Care.
And I do want to thank you guys. When Nalani and I travel and we meet with our constituents, we know that we are very fortunate to live in Hawaii, in a state that values kupuna. It floors me sometimes to hear my peers repeat what their legislators in their states say. And in many states, seniors really are a throwaway population. So I think our frustration is felt in we've got to face those families and figure out, right, how to handle it without, I mean, I'm more than willing to use Kupuna Care funding for those other days of the week for my existing group. It's going to kind of skew, then does this program help? You know, because they won't, you know, we talked about this at Pabia. I don't want anyone to feel the loss of, I don't want people to be in desperation. So I'm not going to let them be. If our people are really good at assessing, does this family really need it? Or are they, you know, if they're making $200,000 a year, obviously we don't put that help in, right? Especially under Kupuna Care, we have target criteria. So we're making sure we're serving the most needy. But we recognize we're very fortunate, and we do appreciate the legacy of Hawaii with caring for Kupuna.
Okay, thank you. Now, we've pretty much exhausted this topic, but there is an item that, among the items that failed this session, unfortunately, I think